Hello and welcome to HBM's Crypto-Corner for Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. We have a couple of things to talk about, so let's get started. Our first article is called Ancient Observations on the Trail of the Medieval Orang Pendek. 1338, a traveler of some repute had just been allowed to pass through the ramparts of the castle city of Avignon in southern France. He was the messenger of the great Khan of Cathay, who sought advice from Pope Benedict the 12th, I should say, in the form of a request for a spiritual guide, of which there had been none since the passing of Italian Franciscan missionary Monte Corvino. At the Pope's appointment, 4 men were designated cardinals, including the messenger himself, listed on the Pope's inscription as John of Florence. Let's see here. Of particular interest are accounts that Marignali gives us from his times in the kingdom of Sabah, part of modern-day Sumatra, of which he wrote that there are also wild men, naked and hairy, who have wives and children, but abide in the woods. They do not show themselves among men, and I was seldom able to catch sight of one, for they hide themselves in the forest when they perceive anyone coming. The account above was printed in the aptly titled chapter Marignali's Recollections from the volume Cathay and the Way Thither, being a collection of medieval notices of China, volume 3. Marignali goes on to describe that these wild people engaged in various agricultural practices and even made exchanges with traders in the kingdom of Sabah, albeit under wary conditions. They do a great deal of work sowing and reaping corn and other things. And when traders go to them, as I have myself witnessed, they put out what they have to sell in the middle of the path and run and hide. Then the purchasers go forward and deposit the price and take what has been set down. I conclude that these monsters are not men, Marignali wrote of his observations, although they may seem to have some of the properties of men, but are merely the character of apes. Indeed, if we had never seen apes before, we should be apt to look upon them as men, unless forsooth they be monsters such as I have been speaking of before, which come of Adam's race indeed, but are exceptional and unusual births. Very interesting, if indeed this is a description of Orang Pendek from many years ago, from over, what, 700 years? That's quite interesting to me. It really is. The Sasquatch centrists. Data shows most people are doubtful but open-minded. Whether you're a believer or an unapologetic skeptic, people's unfaltering interest in Sasquatch is a reality that cannot be denied. One isn't necessarily required to quote-unquote believe in Sasquatch just to have an interest in the topic. Many skeptics, including Benjamin Radford and Joe Nickell, have written at length about Sasquatch over the years, and in Nichols' case, he has even gone to the trouble to hire a wilderness guide and visit certain key Sasquatch hotspots, which is certainly admirable. However, a fundamental lack of physical evidence has left these and the majority of other science writers and academics unconvinced. On the other side of this coin, a number of people are resolute in their belief of Sasquatch, despite being in the minority. However, what is often left out of this discussion is the number of people who might be considered Sasquatch centrists, those who are still skeptical but at least open to the possibility that such a creature could be out there, especially if good evidence were ever forthcoming. And here's a 2007 Baylor Religion Survey. Absolutely not, 39.6, probably not, 44.3%, probably 13%, absolutely 3.1%. Now that's the general that's mostly the general public. Mostly the general public doesn't subscribe to the fact that there could be large hairy bipeds out in our forests. So what do these numbers actually say? At a glance, they would seem to indicate that most people are skeptical about the existence of Sasquatch. Some might use this interpretation as evidence that those who do believe, or who at least entertain the possibility that such a creature exists, are wrong in their judgment, or at worst, that they might even hold irrational beliefs. While it is generally correct that, based on the numbers above, the majority of people don't believe in Sasquatch, it is interesting to note that the most popular response is 44.3%. That is a little less than half of the participants, indicating they thought Sasquatch probably didn't exist, as opposed to the second largest segment of participants who at 39.6 were resolute in their disbelief. Of equal interest is that the third largest group, rather than being firm believers, said that Sasquatch probably exists. This, along with the large number of participants who said the creature probably didn't exist, actually shows that while there are groups at the extreme ends of belief and skepticism about the reality of Sasquatch, the combined majority are somewhere in the middle. In other words, they appear to reserve their judgment rather than making hard conclusions. This is interesting to take into consideration when compared with figures pertaining to things like political attitudes among Americans. According to a 2019 Gallup phone survey, participants were largely center-right. From a social science perspective, it is not hard to see that people who hold partisan attitudes, whether with relation to politics or something more fringe like Sasquatch, tend to fall into the trap of thinking that the majority of people share their own beliefs or attitudes, and that those who disagree are not just wrong but demonstrably so. With Sasquatch, as with politics, people seem to take a moderately conservative attitude in that they presume Sasquatch probably doesn't exist, but they don't entirely rule out the possibility. So, interesting figures here. I didn't want to get into the political stuff because I tried to separate politics on this channel from my HBM's Cryptid-Corner stuff. But still, very interesting stuff. Very interesting figures, I have to say. Finally, I want to highlight and spotlight the Bits and Pieces General Index on SasquatchCanada.com. It's a series of PDFs from Christopher L. Murphy. And it's a series of PDFs, there's 104 of them, which can be downloaded to a hard drive and read at one's leisure. These are not formal papers or scientific journals or whatever. This is simply, as Christopher L. Murphy describes it, coffee time chat. They were limited to 4 to 5 pages at a time with as many images as possible. And there's quite a few images. It's really amazing. I'll show you an example of just one, which is the latest one. You can see some images here. An image of a Yeti or abominable snowman. Sasquatch in British Columbia, the book that Christopher L. Murphy released in 2012. Here's Ivan T. Sanderson's footprint identification chart. This is just an example of one of the issues, which has a great amount of images in it. So I would definitely recommend checking these out. They're really good stuff. I enjoy reading the content and seeing the images in those. Something I forgot to announce is that the Ohio Bigfoot Conference has been moved from May 1st to August 15th. So for those who are planning on going, you'll have to wait a little bit longer. You'll have to wait till August. But Mark wants to make sure that people are safe. And coronavirus, like any other virus, cannot survive in hot weather. So let's see how well this goes. But that's OhioBigfootConference.com for further information. Here's the website. New date August 15th, 2020. Speakers will be Larry Batson, Dr. Anna Nakaris, Cliff Barrickman, and Charlie Raymond. More speakers to be announced soon, apparently. So I hope that everybody who attends the OBC this year will be safe and will stay safe. Use precautions if necessary. There may be people doing just that. And it looks as if, to me anyway, Creature Weekend's probably not going to be held this year. I think Bruce is going to hold off on having Creature Weekend until next year. When it's going to be, I guess, when it would be probably safer to hold a Creature Weekend. But there have been so many non-Bigfoot events that have been canceled. And at least one Bigfoot event that I know of has been canceled, and that was the Southeast Texas Bigfoot Conference, which was supposed to be held this month. I think Russell Accord is planning to still hold the International Bigfoot Conference later this year as well, on Labor Day weekend. Don't know if he's still going to do that or not. So anyway, stay tuned. So that's going to do it for this week's HBM's Crypto Corner. We want to thank you very much for tuning in. You guys are the heart of the show. And again, be safe and be sane, ladies and gentlemen. Practice social distancing. Stay at home if you have to. If you do not need to go out, do not go out. That's just basic. I know it's basic, but still, if you don't have to go out, don't go out. Until next week, y'all be good or be good at this. This is May-HBM's Crypto Corner.